Jeremy, Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you on the internet. If you would like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams twice a month, be able to read my comic books for free online, you can become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook and see work in progress animated GIFs and little blog posts kind of showing insights into how I put my stories together and just my thoughts on daily creative life, you can sign up for my monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics or read digitally on Comixology, now shifting over to Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up such books as my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It's a self-contained story, black and white. You can also pick up my current series, Morning Star, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. This book contains issues 1 through 4. And I've got a little surprise for you guys. I am still working out the bugs with the print edition in terms of the formatting. However, the digital version of Volume 2 of Morningstar is live on Amazon right now. There is a link in the chat. There's also a link in the description. So if you guys have been waiting on this, been waiting to see how the whole thing wraps up, I've got it together. And even though I would like to have launched the print and the digital on the same day, but you know, you guys have been so patient and waiting for so long. I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. So you guys can check out if you're here live right now, go ahead and click that link in the chat. If you're reading later, there's a link in the description. You can go right over and pick it up. They've got Volume 1 and Volume 2 kind of bundled together. They've got a bundle where you can get both. So you can get the whole story. All of that is available on Amazon right now, and it's live. So I feel like, you know what? This is a little bit of a launch party, I guess. A little bit of a launch party. Oh, and finally, if you are still checking out if you're somebody who's been meeting me at conventions over the years, you've been picking up the single issues, you can still get the final issue in regular comic book print format, Morningstar issue 8. That's still available. I'll let you guys know when I'm running out. So I've probably only got like 50 or so left. So it might be a little bit more than 50. I haven't checked the stocks lately. Either way, all done. Great for you guys to go check it out. And I will give you an update as soon as the print edition of Morningstar Volume 8, Morningstar Volume 2 is available. All right. So let's see here. Yati is in the chat. It says, hello, everyone. So nice to be here. Another Draw with Jeremy episode. You know, it's funny. I used to call these episodes Drawing with Jeremy. I don't remember why I changed the title of the series, but I don't know. I went through a period where I was just experimenting with different titles, and I found the easiest thing for me now is just to do the live stream and title it afterwards, just depending on whatever we talk about. Because you know who I am. I like to keep it free flowing, see where the conversation goes, what we talk about. Amar is in the chat. Says happy Sunday. Hey, everybody. Happy Halloween. I don't know if Halloween is on different days in other countries. In the States, today's Halloween. I actually have a Hellboy, not a Hellboy mask, like an official one, but I had a cutout that I made for like a Halloween party a long time ago. I was going to start the stream with that, but I was like, I'm corny enough as it is. Let's see here. Dan Plagle's on the chat. You know what, Dan? We need to have you on an episode to promote your Indiegogo. So let me know how long the thing is going for, and we will maybe we can get an episode out next weekend. Dan says, any rough cuts left? I will tell you, I actually did not produce any rough cuts for issue 8. There's a handful for I think issue 5 is all gone. So it's just rough cuts for 6 and 7. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Morningstar rough cuts are just sketchbooks. So it's my rough pencils with complete lettering over it. So you can see sort of the work in progress phase of me making a comic. Byron says, we love your corniness, though. I appreciate that. Yeah, so the rough cuts, and they are still available to purchase directly from the jeremy.net, just with nothing else in front. The rough cuts are still available there to purchase. So, what are we up to today? Well, yesterday I took a little break from drawing and decided to catch up on a little bit of movie entertainment. Hang on, let me have a sip of coffee. I'm still sort of waking up here. And I watched Yojimbo, the Akira Kurosawa film that inspired the samurai film that inspired Clint Eastwood's Western Fistful of Dollars. And I've only seen a handful of Kurosawa films. I've seen Seven Samurai a couple of times. I've seen Ran. I want to say I've seen one other Kurosawa film, but I can't remember which one. So I've been meaning to just work my way through all of his films. And I watched Yojimbo, loved it. I'm really torn between watching Sanjuro next or Throne of Blood, because Throne of Blood is a remake of Macbeth. And just by the title, Throne of Blood, that's badass. But I also feel like, since I just watched Yojimbo, I might want to do Sanjuro just to complete the story. So let's see. Dan mentions his Indiegogo campaign launched Tuesday. It goes for 30 days. I'm most likely going to extend 60 after that to have it in demand. So anytime would be awesome. Well, let's try to, if you're free next weekend, we'll do it next weekend. If not, after the live stream, I'll text you. We'll work it out. We'll figure out when we're going to have you on. We'll have Dan on to talk about it. He'll send me some images. We'll pimp that thing out. He's got a great Indiegogo for it's Goblin Girl, right? His comic Goblin Girl. Really cool, sexy, crazy, over the top, fun horror. So, all right. So anyway, what we have here is the photos are for reference, because I was I was watching the movie, and when I got to the end, I was just thinking about one of the cool lines in there. Like there's a point where he's going into a fight, and he had a sword fight. He ends up killing guys, and he says, "We're gonna need 2 coffins." Like one guy, he killed 2 guys and then cut the arm off of another, so you know that other guy's gonna die. So he says, 2 coffins. Better make that 3. And I just love that line. And they use it in Fistful of Dollars if they say 3 coffins. Then it comes back later, and Clint Eastwood says, "Sorry, 4 coffins." But the cool thing, one of the coolest things about Sanjuro, the main character in the movie, is his walk. Like he'll be walking, he has this kind of cool strut, and then every once in a while he'll just stretch his shoulders, and just this little, like he's just loosen up and then keep walking. It's just this weird, funky, crusty walk. And let me see, do I have the sketch in my sketchbook here? Here's a little trick that I found from doing the art book study groups. Is if I switch from my normal thing, instead of trying to bring my sketchbook right in front of my camera, in front of my laptop, I just switch to the camera on my tablet, so I can show you the little sketch that I've got here. And it's just, I wanted to have him just walking into the distance with his shoulders shrugged and just his footprints at the bottom with the text. So I just got inspired to make that little image. So I went in, found a font, a commercial-free font that's free for commercial use. Commercial-free font. A font that is free for commercial use that has kind of a samurai feel to it. And I thought, I'm just going to have the text there. And then I really quickly online went and found a couple of photos of him walking away. And I didn't find a photo that has him in the middle of doing the shrug. But the main thing is I wanted to get just his look from the back. And I just thought, it's a really simple image. I might be able to knock it out in 1 hour. So why not? Why not just make a print, a little Jimbo print? So that was that's the idea of what we're doing today. So the photos are here for reference, and we are going to make a Yojimbo print. I'm going to move this up here because I don't really need it over the. I don't need the dialogue while I'm sketching this in. And the second one is just so I don't want to make his, because his hair is not particularly like crazy, but I'm going to exaggerate his top knot a little bit, only because it's going to be really small. It's just going to be him in silhouette. So I want to try and add more identifying features. So let me see here. Let me get one more layer to actually draw on. Let's put the text on top of that. Let's see here. Yeah, Dan also mentions some of his other movies. Hidden Fortress, that's another one. Hidden Fortress is the one, most people know that was a huge inspiration to George Lucas for Star Wars. And it is also another Kurosawa film that I have not seen. So like I said, I really, for a long time, have been meaning to work my way through all of his films. And I think it was just the fact that I finished watching season 2 of The Mandalorian, and they talked so much about the samurai and Western influence in there that got me thinking about going back to Kurosawa. Because like I said, I've only seen the 2 or 3 films. So Hidden Fortress is on my list, Throne of Blood, Sanjuro, all of those things. Let's see here. Amar mentions, I love Lone Wolf and Cub. Lone Wolf. I love the Lone Wolf Samurai and Zatoichi, the Blind Samurai. I've only seen the first. I don't know if it was a movie or an episode. Because I know they made like a bunch of them, almost like a TV serial. But I've only seen the first one of Zatoichi, or the first 1 or 2, and it was good. I just, how it is. There's so many things to watch. I didn't have time to work through it. And Lone Wolf and Cub, I've never seen the movies based on the manga. I've read probably about half of the manga series, so I do need to go back and finish that as well. Let's see here. And Amar also says, I have 2 or 3 characters like that, samurai characters, well, one is a Ronin. Hey, Amar, have you actually read Frank Miller's Ronin? Just because Frank Miller is how I got introduced to Lone Wolf and Cub, because when they first started, there's a company called, Yati says, Jeremy drawing manga. Kind of. And hey, Solid Snake's in the chat. How you doing, man? Thanks for popping in. Good to see you. I have Frank Miller to thank for introducing me to Lone Wolf and Cub, because there's a comic book company back in the late 80s, I want to say, named First Comics. They published a lot of great stuff. Howard Chaykin's American Flag, Scout Comics, not Scout Comics, the publisher, but Tim Truman's Scout. There were a lot of great groundbreaking indie comics in the late 80s that were coming out, and they got the license to reprint Lone Wolf and Cub in the United States. And Frank Miller, I was already a fan of. They ended up getting Frank Miller to do covers for, because Frank Miller is a huge fan of the series. And they got him to do covers for, I think, at least like the first 20 issues are all Frank Miller covers. And at a certain point, they started getting Bill Sienkiewicz to do covers as well, which was also awesome. Hell, they should have a book collected just of Frank Miller's Lone Wolf and Cub covers. I can probably find them online, but that would be pretty awesome to see. Anyway, I picked them up just because they had Frank Miller covers. And I opened up like, oh, this isn't a Frank Miller comic, but this is something he did the covers for. And I checked it out, and it was so worthwhile. They are beautiful little, well, I mean, it's a very long epic story, but it's told in such a beautiful serialized way of a samurai whose wife is murdered. He's framed for the murder of his lord. He's a disgraced Ronin, and he's just traveling the earth, protecting his son on a mission of revenge. It is fantastic. So I'm just trying to figure out here. Let's start by just establishing my horizon, because his legs are going to be a little bit below the horizon. He's going to be about here. And I want to leave some space between him and the ground plane. Actually, Let me undo this. What I want to start with is how much space he's going to take up. So a little space between him and the dialogue. I'm going to have his feet end here because I want to have footprints coming from the distance. So I want him to feel like he's not standing right up against us. I want him to feel like he's walked away a bit. We're going to have the horizon very, very low. And from here, I can start blocking him in as a character. Let's see here. Amar says, did manga first come first because of Lone Wolf and Cub? I'm familiar with it from the 60s. Let's see here. Yeah, oh yeah, the manga definitely came first. I think for a lot of things like that, the manga tends to be the first thing, and then someone decides to develop it in other media. So yeah, I've never seen the movie, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the manga came first. Let's see, Solid Snake says he caught the stream by chance, and Amar says I am not familiar with Frank Miller's Ronin. Well, basically, if you've ever seen Samurai Jack, that's Frank Miller's Ronin, except it looks like Frank Miller influenced by Mobius. So you can actually see the compositions and the storytelling are classic Frank Miller, but his approach to rendering, there's a lot more hatching and a lot more detail, as opposed to like the stark black and white that he tends to have. It has a lot more of the rendering in a Mobius style. It is, I mean, I have to tell you, while The Dark Knight Returns is probably it's hard to kind of pick favorites because Frank Miller has done so many seminal comic book works. It really is tough to say, well, this one's his best. But while Dark Knight Returns ekes out in terms of like how influential it is, Ronin, it being an original story of his, not based on an existing superhero, even though it draws so much from so many samurai comics, for the sheer originality of Ronin, I feel like it almost ekes out, like it might almost ease out in terms of that versus Dark Knight Returns. But I highly recommend you see if you can find a copy at a library or get a copy digitally. Ronin is it's an amazing comic. Like if you're a fan of Frank Miller's, read that book. You absolutely will not regret it. Let's see here. Johnny Fitz is in the chat. He says, nice Japanese font. It's called Gang of Three, actually. Yati says, how's that hay fever, bro? I'm having a good hay fever day. It seems that it really only acts up when the weather is shifting from hot to cold or cold to hot. And it's been cool for the past couple of days. The fact that there hasn't been a shift, I think, is one of the reasons why it's just been sort of like, okay, it's fine. It's leaving me alone. All right, let me turn my my reference layer back on. So I'm not drawing him at the exact angle that he's in the photo. I'm trying to draw him looking directly from behind. And I'm also changing it, like I'm having his shoulders shrugged up, trying to do that walk that he has. But I think I was going to start drawing him with the wind blowing to the left. But I'm going to change this that the wind is blowing to the right, so I can kind of keep the folds in his clothing the same. Lower the opacity on this a little bit. And knock some of this down and take another shot at the gesture. Yadi says, in terms of the allergies, he says it's the same with me. Decrease in humidity also helps. It's the Art and Hay Fever live stream. It's the Art Fever stream. Ba, ba, ba. All right. And I don't really need to get too creative. Well, I want to get the gesture correct, but at the same time, I'm planning to do this with even less light than you see in the photo. Like in the photo, he strikes a strong profile, a strong silhouette. Not a profile, but he strikes a strong silhouette. In this, I'm gonna really make it mostly black. It's more like I'll add a little bit of like rim light on areas where forms are changing direction. So far, I am not happy with this gesture, and I'm probably going to erase the whole thing and draw it again. Although it's probably smarter just to drop the opacity and sketch on top of it. Or I'm just going to draw a bunch of different versions next to the one that I drew until I have one that I like. That's another idea. I mean, a lot of people, that's kind of an animation process is you draw it and then you put like a sheet of vellum or you put it on the light box and put another sheet on top and try to refine and refine. For me, for some reason, I like looking at the bad sketch while I'm trying to come up with a good one. And just that way I can kind of look and see there's something about looking directly at it and just saying, all right, what is it that the other one missed? I'm just trying to feel that I go on and on about how much the mistakes are what help me find my way to the finished piece. And I think looking at a drawing that I'm unhappy with while I'm trying to refine the image, trying to get to the essence, that helps. At least it helps for me. Everyone's process is different. I may have spoken too soon about the hay fever. I feel like I gotta blow my nose real quick. I think no matter what, I always have a little bit of edge of allergies to fight. Let's see here. Oh, Amar says, I added it to your Discord. You'll see it later. He says it's an old sketch I did back in the early 2000s of my Ronin character. frogs. I look forward to checking that out. I think everyone's got one good samurai comic in them. It's just a matter of finding the time to tell that story. Yadi says maybe they're not mistakes, maybe they're steps in the process. One correction actually becomes stronger than the previous. I agree with that. I mean, a lot of times we wish that we could just go directly to the one perfect version of whatever we're working on instead of having to spend tons of time sketching. But I'm somebody for whom the process is sculptural. It's very much like working my way around the idea, doing a little bit here, doing a little bit there, moving pieces around, trying to find my way to what is eventually the right version. I think I may have given Yojimbo too much ass. Yojimbo. I may have given him too much ass, maybe a little too thick in the backside. Now, let me try pulling his shoulder up. That's a bit of a caricature there. It's a lot higher, I think, than it would normally be. But I wanted to see. My hope is that it will read as him really shrugging his shoulders up. It's very possible that I may sketch this out and decide that the shoulder shrug does not look good in a static pose and just ditch it. I wanted to try and capture it because I think it just looks so cool in the movie. But the difference in the movie is that you've got motion. You've got the chance. You can see him do, and you can see how quirky it is to see a guy who is super super badass do a little. See, William's in the chat. Hey, William, how you doing? Thanks for popping in. Byron jokes, Yojimbo. Yeah, he's the himbo. Let's see here. Yati says that boy thick. Let's see here. Amar says I have at least 5 to 10 Asian characters, with probably 4 I favor: a classic cursed samurai, a ronin, an herbalist, scientist, and a juvenile with a powerful extract. So unless you're creating your own like avatar universe. You know what's funny is, aside from not having seen, this being the first time that I watched Yojimbo, I also still have never. I remember this way: I have seen Fistful of Dollars, but I saw it when I was a kid on TV, and I barely remember any of it. So, in terms of working my way through his films and seeing seeing Kurosawa's influence, I've seen and I own a copy of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I haven't watched it in a long time. I do enjoy it, super long, but I haven't seen Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More, which as a kid, I did not know that they were sequels and that The Good, the Bad, the Ugly was actually the third in the series. So I started with it's like I started with Return of the Jedi. But that was the one that of all of Clint Eastwood's Westerns was, I think most people consider that probably his most, well, I think Unforgiven is his best Western, but The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I think my view of it in pop culture, I haven't really polled people. My view is that The Good and Bad, the Ugly is considered his most famous Western. But it's nice to go back and say, all right, Sergio Leone was inspired by Akira Kurosawa, so I should go back and check out Kurosawa's films. Kind of in the same way that I go back and I read, like Samurai Jack inspired Ronin, going back and reading Ronin. I had read Ronin a long time before Samurai Jack came out, but I had some friends who were actually pissed at Samurai Jack. Like they were like, he's ripping off Ronin. I'm like, well, he's doing the same story, but you couldn't do Ronin is not a kid-friendly story. You couldn't do Ronin as a kid's cartoon. I mean, I suppose you could, but you would really have to sanitize it and change a lot, and that is kind of what Samurai Jack is. Like Samurai Jack is a lot funner than Ronin. Ronin is dark and heavy. But yeah, I like to look at the stuff that I'm currently into and say, all right, well, what was the source material for that? And then going back and checking that out. So I'm in a little bit of a reflective phase and looking at the source material that inspired a lot of the stuff that I'm enjoying now. Let's see here. Yeah, Mati's like Unforgiven. Yes, love that. And he said, and also Outlaw Josie Wales with the super hilarious dog. I have not seen Outlaw Josie Wales. You know what's weird is that they used to play a lot of Clint Eastwood westerns on my local television station as a kid, and there's a lot of movies like Two Mules for Sister Sarah. Like you said, the Outlaw Josie Wales. And then ones that aren't even Clint Eastwood movies, like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, there are these super influential films. And I feel like I had them on the television while I was a kid, but I wasn't sitting there with focused attention watching them. And that didn't come really until I was a teenager. That was the point when I really started like paying real attention to stuff like that. It used to be like I just thought, oh, Westerns are cool, cowboys, gunfights, but I didn't really understand any of it. I didn't pay attention to any of the plots. It wasn't until I was later. Like, I think it was probably Unforgiven came out when I was still in high school. And I think that I saw Unforgiven and then started working backwards and saying, okay, this movie is a deconstruction of all of the Westerns I saw as a kid. And then if I caught any on TV, I would go back now and I would watch them with more attention and care. And that's when I really started, paying attention to them. There's stuff like Outlaw Josie Wales. I may have had it on while I was a kid, but I certainly didn't watch it with any type of understanding or remember that I saw it. So there's a lot of, like, I would say most of Clint Eastwood's Westerns, I need to go back and rewatch. I mean, even Good, Bad, and the Ugly, I own it. And I've only watched it since I bought it one time. And I think I bought it specifically because I've seen bits and pieces throughout the years, but I couldn't remember the whole movie all the way through. And having watched it, it is a long ass film. It's a little long. Great. Little long. I mean, if we are talking about Sergio Leone, I would still say that as brilliant as Clint Eastwood is, I prefer Once Upon a Time in the West with Charles Bronson. That to me, I mean, is it the best Western of all time? If Unforgiven is not is not number one, then it would have to be Once Upon a Time in the West. I would say for me, those are my two, like, tied for best westerns of all time. And to be honest, I kind of feel like Once Upon a Time in the West should win, because what makes Unforgiven so amazing is that it's a deconstruction and a comment on the genre. I mean, it still tells a great story on its own, but that commentary on the genre is kind of what is really amazing about it. And you wouldn't have that if you didn't have all of the films that came before. So at this point, now I really need to decide, do I want this shrugging pose, or do I want the pose with him more relaxed? Because the other thing that's I like is if you look at just the silhouette that he has up there with him just walking, he looks so calm and cool. Whereas with this one, as cool as it is, he almost looks he's got a little bit of tension to him that I don't necessarily want him to have. I want him to just look badass. Let's see here. Amar says, I also have a black character, the Asian people in my current universe, Black Demon. This is because he's shadowy, mystical and shadowy character. That's a throwaway. Only the child of Lilith, the only child of Lilith and Adam. That's pretty dark. It's some heavy stuff, man. He says he's going to be a dark, spiteful character, yet all that he protects the innocent and really brutal. He also is blessed with some abilities of his mom since he's of divine origin. Cool, man. I kind of want to, like I said, exaggerate his top knot just a little bit. What's weird is in this picture, he doesn't look particularly shaggy, but this is kind of early on in the film. There's one point where he gets captured and gets his ass beat, and his top knot's down, his hair is all raggedy. You know, and speaking of influences and connections, anybody who reads European comics, any BD, and is a big Mobius fan, you guys let me know whether there's any truth in this or not. But you know, I also was thinking about the fact that in Yojimbo, he gives a fake name, and they ask him what his name is, and I believe that it's the name that he picks is he named himself after a blackberry bush, because he just looks out the window and there's a blackberry bush there. And I was thinking that that might be another connection in terms of comics influence. I wonder if Mobius named his character Lieutenant Blueberry, who, I mean, he's not a man with no name, but he's still a badass Western character. You don't really learn a ton about his past. And I'm wondering if Lieutenant Blueberry is also a nod to the influence of Sanjiro instead of Blackberry naming him Blueberry. Not Sanjiro, but Yojimbo. I don't know, but I'm curious. And if anyone knows one way or the other if that is true, I would love to hear about it. Let's see here. Yati says that Amar's comic sounds cool. Amar also says, how about flatten out the shoulder, making the body more of a triangle to make him more imposing? That's an interesting thing. I'm trying to decide. It's more about intent. Because the idea of this pose is that this pose is actually kind of a comical. That's what I'm trying to decide is, do I want him to be intimidating or do I want him to have this comical pose? Because in the scenes when he's walking through the streets, he has the walk that he has when he does the shoulder shrug. It's kind of amusing. And that's what I'm trying to decide is, do I want to stick with that amusing feel or do I want to go for just plain badass? And my temptation, my instinct is to lean into the amusing pose just because it's not the choice that comes instinctually. I mean, I can make him look badass. I can do him in a badass pose. And I'm aware that the pose I'm picking is not badass, but that's what is interesting me about it. I'm just trying to decide if that is definitely what I want, or whether I'm going to chicken out and go for just trying to make a cool samurai pose. Because really, the pose that he has in the photo reference, that's plenty fine. That's imposing enough, just that. You know what? As a matter of fact, what I will do, let me draw another one on the other side of this guy, and we'll draw another one with him that's just more straight up badassery. And Yadi says, it's nice to hang out with artists, even if it's only through a computer screen. You know what? That's how I want this to feel. I want this to feel like we're a bunch of artists hanging out at a coffee shop, and we're just chit-chatting and sketching and talking about our different stuff we're working on. That's the feel I like to go for, because I don't get that enough. Even before the pandemic, I have some friends. We have our coffee and comics, which we need to have another coffee and comics get together live stream. I've been way overdue on reaching out to the rest of the crew for that. But we used to try and meet up once a month and just hang out, talk comics, sketch, and just BS. And I haven't done that in a long time. But I think that that's kind of a natural thing with artists. Kind of want to have other people in the studio with you and just be bumming around, talking about stuff. Let's see here. Amar says 47 Ronin, and the more new movie is in the same vein of Seven Samurai. The black and white original 47 Ronin is also on the list of stuff that I can watch. Basically, it's because we have HBO Max, and HBO Max has access to the Criterion Collection. And the Criterion Collection has a lot of classic samurai films, including 47 Ronin. So that's one of the ones I'm also going to get to reading it watching at some point. Yadi says he looks badass, like some kind of drunken master type, mocking his enemies or some such. Yeah, that's the feeling I was going for. And Amar says to Yadi and to the rest of us, he says, I plan to animate him one day soon as well. His name is Soot, by the way. And yeah, Yadi says I'd watch that animation. I will too, man. I look forward to seeing it. How long does it take for you to do an animation? Like, have you put together a completed animated short so far? Because I know you were doing a lot of CG model building. I didn't know if you had a chance to actually finish any animated just stories. So now I'm trying to intentionally simplify and just make him blockier. So this is kind of like I'm looking at the suggestion Amar said about making it more of a, I'm not going to go full triangle, but I am kind of going to go, broad shouldered, more narrow waisted, and just blocky badass. So now I'm going, he's actually bulkier than he is in the reference. But when I'm drawing from reference, I do try to not duplicate exactly what I see and give it a little bit of its own character. I think I made the leg, even though it's a very simple angle, I'm trying to get the leg to feel like it's going forward slightly, and then with this other leg to have the leg go forward a little bit more, but then back a little bit more. So have that, just a little bit of perspective. And I can tell you, just from this amount that I've sketched right here, for my personal tastes, the sketch that I just drew right now feels more badass. He feels more imposing with this little sketch that I'm drawing right here. But the quirkiness of his shoulder, like, that captures the actual film to me. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with the shoulder shrug. Now I need to erase this this sketch, but I'm going to keep the. But I think that the other one is the one I'm definitely going to go with. So now, let me just. Magic wand this bad boy. Not magic wand it, but just select, copy paste, turn that layer off, turn the reference off. And now let's get this into position. And I feel like I should actually make him smaller and put him in the distance. I think the challenge for me here is that to a certain degree, I am very tempted to make this a narrower image. When I say narrower, for me, the composition, the thing I really like is it being much more vertical. Like, I feel like this would almost work better if it was twice as tall as it is wide. Let's see here. Yeah, I was asking Amar about finishing animations, and he said, not yet. He said, I need a year off from work. He says, I plan for that to happen next year. So he said, I'll be starting a new channel for animation, stuff like that. Definitely let me know when you do. Maybe I can have you on and we can just talk about, get in depth in more of that process. When you're when you're hip deep in the animating, let me know. We'll have an episode out where we can just come in and you can show some of that animation when you feel ready to show stuff. Let's see. Yate says, how about tilting the upper body to exaggerate that he's moving? Let's see. Well, he is kind of tilted. The problem is that if I tilt him too much, you lose the shrug. Because the only reason you can tell he's shrugging is because I've got his upper body square. So it's a good suggestion. But if I take him and then I tilt him, one of his shoulders isn't going to feel like he's shrugging. So that's kind of the reason why if you look here, it's a little bit of a subtle difference. But here's his if I were to make a straight line, a straight shoulder line would be like, let me turn the opacity up a little bit. That's a straight line, and his shoulder's already tilted like this. So he's tilted up just slightly. But if I do any more than that, then the difference between his shoulder and the angle of the shrug is going to be less dramatic. So these are kind of like compositional things I'm thinking about in terms of the movement. I mean, I could push it more, but I really don't want to lose what I've got right there. That feels like it's working for me. I just need to decide whether I want to make him any smaller. So if I make him any smaller, then it's really going to be like, what am I looking at here? It's just a tiny little guy. Because the whole point of me doing this is not just to do the image, but I was going to make this into a print. Actually, let me turn that reference back on and look at the buildings a little bit, try to get a little bit of the flavor. Whoops. A little bit of the flavor of these buildings. Let's see here. Back to the chat. And I see that question of there, Yati. I'm gonna come back to that. Let me just run through here. Let's see here. Amar says, if I could focus on just that, I could knock out some short animation episodes every month, along with doing other art as well. See, I mean, that's the challenging thing for productivity. I've tried to create a system where I can just continue to put out a little bit of artwork at a time while maintaining my work schedule. I think that's always the dream, is just to be able to sit down and make your own thing all the time. I just have yet to, I don't see a place yet where I can clear the decks to do that. But I found a place where the balance between my work and my personal art are able to coexist. And for me, sometimes that might be all you can get. I mean, I look at guys like like Harvey Pekar, spent his years working in the post office and then, writing these amazing comics on the side and collaborating with people over the years. And I'm like, you know what? If that's all I get to do, so be it. I mean, it's very possible to drive yourself into an early grave, frustrated over the lack of productivity. And I feel that frustration, but for the most part, I just say, all right, I look at it almost like working out. I can only do what I can do. So I just try to do that and keep it moving. I gotta put a couple of guys over here. All right, so questions. Let's see here. Yati says, I have a selfish question. Oh yeah, Amar does mention for his animated films, want to make it that anamorphic style they did with films back in the day. That would be awesome. I don't know if you have Disney Plus or if they have any of them posted on YouTube to watch, but the Star Wars animated Star Wars Visions, the anime series where they took just Star Wars stories done by anime studios. I've only watched the first episode of the series, and it stands out because as opposed to looking like traditional anime, it looks like a manga. Anime tends to be brightly colored, the large eyes and the traditional anime style that we think of, whereas the in this series, it looks like they took an issue or a chapter of Crying Freeman or Lone Wolf and Cub and animated it. So like everything is gray tones except for the lightsabers. They do a really good job of having a full range of values, but not everything getting particularly muddy or lost. I think that it's a masterpiece just in terms of tonal value control, tonal value control without anything getting cluttered or lost. It's wonderful to see just for that. Now, back to Yadi and Yadi's question. I want to be an artist. Can I make it online or should I move out from where I live? My environment is completely non-supportive, not inspiring and supportive. And let me see, to follow up there, Yadi says, one person recommended that I should move out, but I'm fearful, especially during a pandemic, so no one knows about my art life. My goal would be to earn just 600 USD. That's the cost of living. Any advice, please? That's not spammy at all. Okay, making it as an artist is very hard. I mean, for me, I'll tell you, I haven't made it as an artist in the sense that I make my living as a graphic designer, as a toy designer, and very little of that job is drawing. I do some drawing, and it's very useful to be able to draw in that job, but I don't make my living from my comics. I would say that if the current living environment is not supportive at all of your personal goals and what you want to do, you should want to move out of there just because you're in an environment that's unsupportive. And that has nothing to do with whether that's going to help you, that I don't think that is separate from the issue of you desperately want to be an artist. I just think if you're living in an environment that isn't supportive of what you want to do, that's not healthy. So you should want to get out of there. But I don't think it would be irresponsible to advise you to just say, all right, you can make this much money as an artist, go and leave. What you should do is, I don't know what kind of job you have right now, how old you are, whether you're planning to go to college, whether you're already an adult and you're living your life. But what you should do is you should find a job that can pay your bills and that you can help you make enough to get out and be on your own. And maybe that's living with roommates. Maybe it isn't necessarily that you're able to make enough to fully live on your own, but maybe you find some people that are willing to rent a room. And even that's a mixed bag because I'm lucky that I've mostly had roommates that I really enjoy, but I've also went through periods in college where I had roommates that I did not, it wasn't that I didn't get along with them because I kind of get along with everybody, but they weren't, I've had roommates that weren't necessarily the artistic type as well, and it wasn't doing a lot for me. Um, but what I would say is, one is just being able to take care of yourself, being able to survive, being able to make enough money that you can afford your food, your bills, your living situation. And so I would start with finding a job that does that. And it's probably easier to find a job that isn't an art job that does that. If you can find a job that's an art job, do it. But finding a job that will cover your bills, um, and then just doing that. And for a long time, I haven't told this story in a while on the live stream, but I have a video called "The Time I Quit Comics," and I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I wanted to be a comic artist when I was in college. I mean, I wanted to be a comic artist when I was in high school. Halfway through college, I realized that the amount of money that I make just would not be enough to truly support me. Well, actually, it was more about how many jobs there are in the industry. Because I said, all right, let's say that Marvel puts out 100 books a month, DC puts out 100 books a month. If you take Image, Dark Horse, and all of the indie presses and put them together and say each of them together puts out, like, say, 300 books a month, then we're looking at 500 comic books released every month. That means 500 jobs for pencilers, 500 jobs for inkers, 500 jobs for letterists, colorers, everyone in the pipeline. Now, that doesn't include artists who pencil and ink their own work. That doesn't include colorists, and most colorists do, color multiple books per month, letterers who color multiple books per month. So even if there was only one person working each position, writer, penciler, inker, letterer, that means that that would be a total of 5 people times 500 books. That's 2,500 jobs. 2,500 jobs in the total comic job market. Now, I have not ever gone to check those numbers, but that was me being generous. For the most part, I'm pretty sure it's less than that. But if there's only 2,500 jobs in the entire comic industry, then, I mean, that job market is roughly around the size of the NBA, maybe a little bit smaller. And in college, I thought I may have to find something else to do because that's just too small of a job market. And so I didn't switch because my program didn't have an animation undergraduate degree. They did have an animation program that was a graduate degree, and you could take the classes if you were an art major. So I started taking animation classes, and my goal was to go into animation. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the program, but I think the thing I discovered was just that other than storyboarding was really the thing that I was most interested in, but for storyboarding, you really kind of had to work your way up, and I could never stay on model. I was able to find work quicker doing graphic design than I was in animation. I could tell you all of this to say that I just presume the whole reason why I'm doing comics now is because that graphic design direction that I took, because there just were not enough jobs in comics, eventually I ended up saying, well, I still love comics, even though there aren't enough jobs. So I just said, I'm going to just make them for me. And originally I was going to do webcomics way before webcomics were a thing. I actually had the very first version of Morningstar, which I still haven't shown on a live stream yet. I need to do that at some point. But the earliest version of Morningstar I drew when I was in college. And I actually made like an HTML hand-coded pages. And I was just going to do it as a webcomic because I was like, I want to make comics and I'm going to make them even if I'm not getting paid for it because I just love it. So that's the advice that I would give to you. Worry about your finances, worry about your living expenses, and then make comics because you want to make comics. And if there's an opportunity to sell them, go to local comic conventions. Hopefully when the pandemic is over, you'll feel a lot safer and reasonable to go do these things. My first comic convention I went to, I'm still not anybody who's noted in the comic book industry. I'm just another dude self-publishing. But I went and people were very kind. They had nice things to say about my work. I almost sold out of the first book that I bought, that I brought with me. So that's my advice to you would be, just make comics because you love making comics. And that's advice that I've heard many times before about people, is that if you're doing comics simply for financial gain, find something else to do. Go into banking, go into real estate, go into something else, because there's much better ways to make money than drawing comics. Much better ways out there in the world. And even if you're going to make art, you're better off following Amar's path and going into animation. There's a lot of comic artists who become character designers or storyboard artists in animation, because the pay is better than comics. Make art because you want to make art, and then if you have an opportunity to profit off of it, take that opportunity. Try to create your own ideas, like Amar's doing, things that you can own and control, and that's just the thing you do on the side, And if you want to, if an opportunity comes to sell that to Netflix and develop it as a TV show, take it. If a publisher offers you a deal that doesn't take all of the rights and ownership away from you, then consider that. That's the best advice I can give you. Let me know if that helps, or if you have follow-up questions. Let me scroll down here. Byron jumps in and he says, it's a hard question to answer in all honesty. I don't really know your living situation or how stable things are for you. It's kind of similar to what I was thinking. He says, well, I would love to say follow your dreams. It's easy to say because it doesn't affect my life. There's a lot of factors to consider. But he says, at the very least, you could start trying to build an audience. Yeah, you can just post a comic on Instagram or Twitter. And let's see here. And Yadi says, my cost of living is 600 USD monthly. I live in Europe, so that's a lot. I earn about 800 USD monthly from my job that I hate, and I have about 2,000 in savings. He says, for the past month, I tried to build an audience on IG. Now, okay, that right there, trying to build an audience on IG. I've heard from some if you've never heard of the podcast Comic Lab, check them out, subscribe to it, listen to every episode. They are full of knowledge and wisdom. The idea of trying to build an audience for the past month, these guys have been doing webcomics for almost 20 years now, and they're still frustrated by Instagram. So they're one of the guys, Brad Geiger, said that he found surprisingly that TikTok was working for him in terms of building an audience, just reposting a lot of his previous YouTube content and then some new short videos that are more educationally related. But the point is that Instagram, these guys who have an audience and have a following and have a large body of work behind them, found very little traction on Instagram. So even if you are going to pop on Instagram, who knows? It might take, years to build that audience. Like, I've been on YouTube for well over 10 years now, and my video still hasn't broken. My channel still hasn't broken 10,000 viewers or 10,000 subscribers. And that's not me complaining. That's just saying the idea of building an audience, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a long, long time. And that's the reason why I say it's more about having having an opportunity, having artwork that you're making as your own personal outlet and having an opportunity to make and share the things you want to make versus, desperately trying to get hired by somebody. I know that you mentioned before that you really hate the job that you have. Even if you weren't an artist, why would you stay in that job? Look for another job. There's got to be something. I'm not sure what you do for your day job, and I'm not asking you to disclose that. That's personal. It's a lot of information to put on the internet, particularly just you don't want to get back to the place you have, because even if you don't like them, until you have a new, better situation, you don't want other people to go around saying this person's talking shit about the company behind your back. But whatever you do, if someone's paying you to do it, someone else will pay you to do it. Find another job, or find a job that is not art related, but you have the skills to do, or something that's adjacent to what you do. Step one, leave the current job you have. That's the absolute very first. No, let me put it this way. I don't mean leave that job, like quit. I mean, step one, find a new job that you hate less. You don't even have to love the new job. You just need to hate it less. That's step one, because going into a work environment that you do not like every day, that you don't enjoy, that will sap your soul. It will drain your energy. It will drain your creative energy. It's just draining. So that's my very first piece of advice to you, is simply find a job that you enjoy more. And if that takes a month, it takes a month. If it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months. But you know what? Start getting I don't know if you're on, I don't even know if they have LinkedIn in Europe. Whatever the big job, I don't know if they have monster.com in Europe. Whatever the big job search companies are in Europe, or the job websites, get on those websites. Create searches for different jobs. Actively reach out to other friends that you know, or family members, or anyone else you know who works in the same industry. Start reaching out to people and just getting your resume in front of people. And that's what I would say is, take the time, like just 30 minutes a day, take it to reach out on LinkedIn at other companies you'd like to work for. If you have a job that requires a portfolio, get your portfolio out there, update it, start shopping it around, update your resume if you have to. Just start reaching out to people and actively looking. Make finding a new job a project, like an assignment. The same way you would work on doing character designs for a new comic or sketches for a painting. Make it a little bit every day until you find a new job. Find that new job, get into a place where you don't hate your day job as much anymore. And then once you're in a place where you're working in a stable environment you don't hate, then you can sit down and say, all right, I'm going to make more art. It would be irresponsible for me to tell you, quit your job and just go try to make money making art. It's very hard. It takes a long time. I currently am not able to do the thing you're asking to do. So I'm the wrong person to give you advice on that. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying don't try. I'm saying be responsible in the way that you start building your art career. So move to a place where you're happier in your daily. But yeah, Byron says here, in terms of quitting, he says generally most people would recommend having at least 6 months of savings as a buffer before you plan to quit your job. I know that you have savings, but you're going to burn through that fast if you don't already have some sort of income stream from your art. The people who quit their job, that's the other thing. When people quit their job, usually what they do is they're working their day job and they are already selling their artwork on their own, and they're only making, like, let's say $50 or $100 a month. And then what they're doing is they're working on building that business. They're working on building that, where if they're selling prints, if they're selling original sketches, if they're doing commissions, they're doing comics, you build it up a little bit every month, and a little bit every month, so that you're basically working yourself to death, because you're working 2 jobs, your day job, and then you're building your art business, and you're making the art. But when you get to the point when you're making almost as much with your personal business as you are with your day job, then it's like, yeah, you're kind of working double. In a way, you could say you're getting double income now. But when you get to that point where you're almost making as much as your day job, that's when you say, all right, I'm ready to leave my day job. When you can make, that's the thing. When you can make what you make at your day job consistently for, I would say 6 months in a row, but at least 3 months in a row, where you're able to hit the exact same amount in your selling your own work as you do at your day job, that is the only time I think that it's reasonable to really consider quitting your day job. And I don't know if you've even started to sell your own work. So that's step one. Step one for you is find a job you don't hate. Step 2, start selling your work. And I don't know whether that work is prints, originals, commissions, or comics. pick one of those and start posting them on Instagram and have a link in the bio where people can either email you to commission you, or a link where they can go to a shop where they can buy your prints, or a link where they can go and buy your comics that you're doing print on demand, so you're not paying out of pocket for print runs. Whatever it is, you need to decide on a revenue stream, and you need to make that revenue stream available. You need to create a system where people can give you money, where they can put in their credit card and pay for a thing, and then you ship it out, or you have it fulfilled by a print on demand service, however it's going to be. So that's the second thing. Is the first thing is finding a job you don't hate. Second thing is creating some sort of revenue stream. Third thing is filling that revenue stream with work. The fourth thing is promoting it consistently month in, month out. And the fifth thing is growing it over months and maybe years until it is sustainable enough that it can replace your income. That's your game plan. Like I said, it's not easy. The steps are simple to understand, but they're very difficult to accomplish. I haven't accomplished those steps yet. So I'm not telling you this like, hey, anybody can do it. It takes a long time, and I have not achieved that yet. Let me get caught up, because I think that there's probably a bunch of comments since we started talking about this that I haven't caught up yet. Let's see here. Yeah, Byron mentioned that the 6-month buffer and said that even that with kind of window can be quite tight if you don't have any immediate plans. Yeah, Yadi says, I don't know where to go yet. Yadi says, I remember that video. I used to watch this religious. They said I quit comics before I even started them. I remember that quote. Yes. Mighty Geek says graphic design is the way to go. Graphic design, agreed, is the saving grace for many people who want to break into comics, but don't have that revenue stream yet. Let me leave that up while I say this just for a little bit. The thing about graphic design is that there's lots of people, there's lots of business owners who would rather just save the money and say, well, I can do this myself. The problem is that Photoshop, Illustrator, a lot of graphic design programs, for those of us who use them every day, it feels very simple and straightforward. But for people who aren't designers, and a lot of people who just aren't necessarily even computer savvy, it's like speaking another language. Like, for instance, I have hand-built HTML pages, but it's by going and copying and pasting code from code libraries and knowing how to put them together. I cannot hand code. Like writing code just directly out of my head. I am not capable of it. There's lots of people, software engineers, people who are more graphic design or art related, but they work more in web space and building apps. There are people who are completely capable of writing code out of their head, just like I would write comic book dialogue. That to me is the same as somebody who's just a normal business owner who wants somebody to, I don't know, create a banner ad or an email newsletter for them. They don't understand how the technology works, even though they know what they want in it. Graphic design gives those of us who have those skills, who already understand Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, doing web apps using Figma or Adobe XD, stuff like that. People who understand how to do those things, that's an opportunity to find jobs doing other things, to make money doing things we already know how to do. So let's see here. Let me scroll back up. Lots of comments here. Yanti says, I'm doing that, but there's a strong desire to draw even more. It's causing trouble where I work because my bosses see my lack of commitment because I daydream about drawing most of the time. Let's see here. Mighty Geek says, Neil Adams says, no one goes into comics expecting to make $1 million. Yadi says, interesting. Comic Lab, got it. Yes, everyone, if you're not listening to Comic Lab, subscribe. I'm actually a patron on their Patreon because I feel like what they give is so valuable that I want to support it. So definitely check that out. Let's see. Amar says, if you're building an audience organically, 3 to 5 years is really good, but 5 to 10 years is a better roadmap. Let's see here. Amar says, Oh, in terms of the comic things, he says it's weird because your videos are awesome and supportive and informative. Yeah, well, the thing about me quitting comics before I started, the whole point of that was I wanted to try and be real with people about my, like, I talk about, people talk to me about the same type of struggles you're having, about wanting to make art and not being able to get to make it and make a living at it. And I went through, I don't want to make it sound like I've never had those struggles. When I made that video to kind of talk about my struggle, and the way I got through that struggle was by building a life where it's not about making it in comics. I found a way to support myself, now to support my family, contribute to my family. And I had to make peace with the fact that maybe comics weren't going to be the way I was going to make a living, but that I could still continue to have personal creative experiences, express myself. Let's see here. Amar says, you think you're going to build an audience quickly when no one knows you. He says it's next to impossible and like hitting the lottery. Let's see. Yadi says, I'm staying in that job because December is paid statutory leave. I'm leaving in February to live off my savings for 2 months. I'll be quitting soon. I know we're still running through and I'm catching up, so you may have already answered this. But if you're quitting soon and you're going to go off for 2 months, I hope you found a new job, or at least you're actively looking for a new one. See, Amar says most people want success that aren't even ready mentally or skill-wise to support an audience. He says, I don't think anyone here could honestly say that tomorrow they're ready to support 1,000 to 10,000 people clamoring for their work. I live it this way. I may not be able to, but I would love the challenge. See, Yadi says, my last 3 jobs were disastrous, and I have lost hope there are any good jobs in this town. Everywhere there was bullying from managers. Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't move, but I mean, if you're renting, it is possible to search for jobs in other cities. You can get, like I said, I don't know what the job websites are in Europe, but get on those websites and start searching for jobs that are maybe 1 city away, 2 cities away, 3 cities away. Something it would be too long for you to commute long term, but if you had to commute an hour each way for a month or 2, search for jobs outside of your current job area, and maybe you take a day off and you go in for those interviews. Like if you have one that really sounds promising, or maybe you ask them to do a remote interview because you live from another city, but you tell them, I would be definitely willing to move for this job. I just need to, a first interview. At least, you can start with a video interview, and then if they hit it off, then you come for it. If it sounds like it's worth it and they're really interested, then you take a day off from work and you go specifically to go for that in-person interview. And then if you get that job, then you leave your job and you start looking for an apartment in that new city, so you don't have to have that long-ass commute. When I first got into the toy industry, I had a 90-minute commute each way. I was driving all the way from one end of Los Angeles to the other. When I say Los Angeles, I don't mean Los Angeles the city. I mean Los Angeles County, which people don't know. Los Angeles County itself is huge. The city of LA is huge and spread out, which whenever people come and visit LA, that's the thing that surprises people, is that LA isn't just this one city like New York. It's this massive area with tons of different cities in it. It's kind of like in Judge Dredd 2000 AD, like Mega City 1. LA is like Mega City. It's just massive urban sprawl. And I had to drive from one end of the county to the other, and I did that for probably like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, until I was able to find an apartment that I could afford. I'm trying to remember if I got the apartment first. No, what I ended up doing was I found a friend who lived out here, and I was able to become a roommate with them, and I lived with them for a year or 2 before I eventually moved out to my own place. Point being is, I really hope that you're making finding a new job a priority, because I understand your current job is making you miserable. And if you said that all the jobs in your city are horrible and have bullying, then yes, it's time to move to a new city. But even moving to a new city can be done with a plan, as opposed to just quitting your job, pulling up stakes, and hoping you find something new. You can do job searches while you're still living where you're living. But you got to take it seriously. You need to take finding a new job as seriously as you take drawing. Let's see here. Back to Omar in the audience building. Amar, I called you Omar. Sorry, man. Amar says, because once the audience comes, if you're not prepared to prepared properly for that audience, you will lose that audience and maybe your credibility socially if you can't deliver. Amar says, master a technique, skill, or trade. Yeah, in terms of lots of people, Mighty Geek Studios said graphic design. There's lots of jobs doing app and mobile design, web design work, and there's courses online for free. There's a web channel called, I think it's just called Design Course. It's a guy who just teaches web coding for app design on YouTube. You should definitely check him out. You know, that's the kind of thing where you would have to it would take away from your drawing time, but you can find these jobs. You don't have to just be stuck doing something you hate. Let's see. Yadi says, by building for a month, I meant I was just posting to see how much followers I can garner. I never imagined anything beyond 100. I gained 15 followers. It's a lot for me. Okay, well, that's good. We were afraid that your expectations were unrealistic and that you were going to put stuff on Instagram hoping that you were like, I'm going to build a viable business right away. Because like I said, like Amar said, building a business in 3 to 5 years is optimistic. 5 to 10 is more realistic. And that's not to say that people don't build a business and make a full-time income within a year. It is possible. But what you want to do is you want to plan for the worst case scenario and build upwards. So if you do have rapid success, you can capitalize on it. But if you don't, you're like, okay, I'm just going to make a little bit of progress every day. But let's see here. Yeah, Amar says, find a tech skill or a trade and use that skill to support yourself. Byron says, you see that happen quite often when something goes viral. Artists tend to be quite small and incapable of handling overnight growth. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar says, I spent almost 2 years and made over 500 videos and still not ready because I know I'm not putting out my best work. Said, also, I know I'm doing it for me and not as a job. By the way, I'm going to have to finish this Yojimbo piece offline because I think at this point, I've got some stuff to take care of in the house, and I will finish this separately, and I'll let you guys know when I have the print available for it for sale. But I think the rest of the time with us here is just going to be spent wrapping up this conversation in the chat, and then we'll call it a day. So let me come through here. Let me see here. Yadi says, I still don't know what kind of revenue stream I'd want. I tried freelance in the past. It wasn't very good. Let's see here. Amar says, once I figure out my niche, it's something I'm confident I can produce at a rate that will support an audience. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar and Byron says, anybody can do it. It's definitely not easy. So most just won't due to moment-to-moment viability. Amar says, I stopped doing graphic design years ago because everyone overnight became a graphic designer just because they wanted to learn how to use the software. The 90s graphic design was viable as a trade. And Amar says, now crowdsourcing has made fields not as valuable. He says, doing UI, UX, and other design-related fields are more valuable than just doing print or graphic design only. I completely agree. That was something for a while I was considering transitioning to. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely follow Amar's comment there. UI UX is it's a field that's in demand. It's creative, technical but creative, and there's growth there. And Amar says, I remember in the early 90s, 2000s, you can get 25 to 75 an hour doing graphic design. He says now somewhere in the middle would be good, but possible on a corporate level. He says you would have to get to management level and get in the middle, almost C-level to get close to 75 an hour. He says be thankful that you're young enough to still make a change and start over, especially if you're not married or with children. And Yadi says, I'm most appreciative of all your advice, guys. It means a lot to me. And he says, it feels great knowing I'm not alone in this. You are not all alone in this. I think most of us here are people that for us, comics is an ongoing side hustle. And we're sitting here enjoying the conversation about the work, But for the most part, we're all busy, grinding in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, Byron backs it up. He says, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Yadi says, I strongly believe you're right, Jeremy. I used to have a normal job once, and it was great. It energized me for my drawing. I never got tired of it. I got back to my job to take a break from art. Okay, I think we're caught up, which amazing. Normally when I say that we're going to stop and just talk to the chat, we end up going for like another half hour beyond that. So I'm going to leave you with these thoughts, Yadi, and hopefully this is helpful. Again, expand your job search beyond the city that you're in, with the knowledge that if you find a job that is suitable for you and is a better work situation, then you should then move from this city to another city over. So that's one, is expand your job search outside the area you're in, because it sounds like that has not been a good situation for you. In terms of your personal artwork, yeah, you do need to decide what you want your revenue stream to be. And so that's freelance work and commissions, selling prints and original artwork, making comics, and both selling the comics and also creating a Patreon or some other crowdfunded supporting. So not necessarily running a Kickstarter campaign, because that's revenue. You can only run 1, maybe 2 campaigns a year. Whereas Patreon is sort of an ongoing thing, selling comics, that sort of thing. I forget what the other thing is, but there's other stuff you can do beyond that you could look into. But as a starting point, what I would say is start with the thing that you enjoy the most. If what you enjoy the most is making comics, then start with that as how can you make money making comics, and then make a comic and test out selling it online through a print-on-demand service. Test out putting it on Webtoons and having people support you on Patreon. Test out going to small conventions and getting a small print-on-demand print run and just selling it to people directly. Test out setting up a website that you can sell work from. You can sell print-on-demand versions from. So I would say, whether it's making prints, whether it's making comics, whatever it is, figure out the thing you enjoy making. Start with that. What do you actually, when no one's looking and you're just making art for you, what is it that you already make? And then start testing different ways to sell that. Once you have found a way that people will give you money for your work, whichever one seems to be that way, then continue to build that up. And what I mean by build that up means, 1, produce more of that thing, whether it's prints or originals or commissions. Produce more of that thing, make more of them available for people to give you money, and promote it. That's where putting stuff out on social media comes in. That's where having a YouTube channel and sharing it comes in. That's where you slowly start building out your business. And then, so you find a new job in a new city, you're working that job, you picked the type of artwork that you enjoy making, and you found people who will give you a small amount of money for it. Now you work that day job, you come home, you make more and more of the thing you like, and you share it with more and more of people that will pay you money for it. And as you're doing that, you experiment with other revenue streams. Maybe, like for a long time, I didn't sell very many prints, and then I changed my print size. Instead of having 8.5 by 11, that's US letter size, I had them at US letter size. When I changed to doing prints that were more tabloid, large, it's 11 inches by 17 inches here in the States, I started selling a lot more prints, changing that size. Sometimes it's size. Sometimes it's a matter of, I still don't sell very many online. I sell much more in person at conventions. You may have the opposite. You may be somebody who has a hard time at conventions, but you may sell a lot of stuff online. Or you may decide, I'm going to just collect all of my work into ebooks and sell ebooks of them, or print-on-demand books. You're going to have to experiment, and that's where, as Amar and Byron said, that's where that 3 to 5 year or 5 to 10 year window comes into play. Is you just saying, all right, I know what I want to make. I need to reach out, find people that like the thing that I'm making. I need to try different ways to make it available for their purchase and find out the way that they want to consume it the best. And that takes years. And again, there's overnight sensations. I'm never going to tell you you can't be successful quickly. There's some people who put their whole thing into trying to build ways to rapidly build a business. But more often than not, it comes from having one source of stable revenue while you're working on building the other revenue for the thing that you really want to do. So that's your game plan. Please feel free to come back and watch this particular video again. Watch it over again. If you ever feel lost and I don't know what to do or where to go or what the next step is, come back and use this video as a resource. The fact that we've had these conversations. And guys, like you said, you're glad, Yadi, you made us send, you let us know that you appreciate this and that you don't feel alone in this struggle. We're going to be here week in, week out. We can have these conversations again. If you have follow-up questions, we can talk about those in the following weeks coming up in the future. So yeah, those are your marching orders. Use this as a resource to come back and home base and check out what if you need to refocus and figure out what your next steps are. Hey, Trevor's in the chat. Skull. Trevor popped in, says, just checking in before I head out to work. All right, man. It's always good to hear from you. Thanks for popping in. We're wrapping it up here. Mighty Geek says, always have confidence in your work. Yes. He says, if you don't have confidence in your work, why should anyone else? You've always got to be your own biggest fan in a lot of ways. That's very true. There's a lot of times I was talking to somebody, a member of our community, who was telling me that they're not going to be as interested in making art anymore because it's been really rough. And I told them, you know what, you got to do. A lot of times you're not getting the encouragement that you want, and it really is. You feel like you're climbing up a hill and you're doing it alone by yourself. It's rough, and you do have to be the person who's the most dedicated. Again, another quote from Comic Lab. Brad Geiger says, "No one's going to care about your creative career as much as you do. Period." That's the God's honest truth. No one's ever going to care as much as you do. So, you're not alone in this struggle, but in the end, you're the one who's going to have to drive that ship. Yadi says, we'll do whatever it takes, however long it takes. All right, man. And Trevor says, always good topics. I'll have to catch the rewatch. All right, everybody, we're gonna pack it in for here. I'll let you guys know when I have this finished Yojimbo post on this Yojimbo print available. But anyone watching later, if you guys want, please definitely make comments. Believe it or not, comments make a difference on YouTube. If you see this and you're thinking, that's an interesting thing they talked about. I wonder what he thinks about this. I wonder what he has to say about this question. Leave those comments. The comments, along with thumbs ups on the video, comments actually make videos rise in the YouTube ranks. More people see it if they see there's a lot of people talking about the video. So let's keep this conversation going. If there's things that we talked about here and you don't want the conversation on this particular topic to end, talk about it in the comments in the video. I'll answer those comments. I'll continue talking with you guys, however long this conversation goes, and we carry it on in the comments for this video and in future videos. It's an ongoing discussion. It's not just a one-time, the video's here and it's done. We keep this thing going because I love this. The fact that we have a community. Let's see. Yadi asks if Comic Lab is on YouTube. You know what? I honestly think that they are. Let me go real quick before we wrap up. Let me look. I know that Brad Geiger has a YouTube channel. Comic Lab is not a video podcast. You know what? So I don't know for sure if they're on YouTube, but if you just look them up as the podcast, you can listen to it while you're drawing. Let's see here. Do they have a... it does not look like they have a YouTube channel. So you're going to have to stick with just the just their podcast. But they it's not a YouTube channel. It's just an audio podcast. If you look up Comic Lab podcast, you should find it. So on that note, again, if you've enjoyed these videos, if you'd like to get bonus live streams twice a month, read my comics for free online, you can join our Patreon, become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. I'm actually looking off the screen here because I'm trying to remember. I literally cannot remember if we're doing the art book study group this week or next week. The weeks are blurring together. Let me see here. Videos, live videos. I want to say that we've got an art book study group coming up this week. I don't remember doing it last week. If so, the art book study group, that's where we go through some of the best art books around. We sit down, we sketch from them, do studies, and try to suck out all the knowledge we can to improve our craftsmanship, our draftsmanship, and our knowledge of art. You get all of that and more at patreon.com/Jeremy. And there's tons of rewatches there for you. So if you want to get caught up on the art book study group, there's probably, I want to say, anywhere between 40 and 50 videos, each one 2 or 3 hours long. So there's hundreds of hours of studying art books already there for you to watch already. So just go back and check that out. You want to sign up for my monthly newsletter, you get a free digital sketchbook. And then once a month, I just send you a message with any new artwork that I have or any new books for sale. Comments on what I'm reading and watching, books and TV, what I'm consuming. Work in progress animated GIFs, sharing more of my creative process, all of that at newsletter.jeremy.net. And as I said, amazon.jeremy.net. You can finally get Morningstar Volume 2 available digitally there. You can also pick up Volume 1 in print and digital. As soon as I get some formatting issues worked out, the print version of Volume 2 will be available as well, but it's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. So you can get this there. You can get my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, a black and white psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Check that out. And at my home-based website, you can still get print issues of the individual issues of Morningstar. Morningstar issue 8 is the final issue there. I've got copies of 5, 6, 7, and 8 available. Oh, wow. This live stream has been hot fire. Thank you, everybody, for all the great comments, all the great conversation. Yadi says they found, yes, you found Comic Lab, Brad Geiger. Yes, that's the guy. He's one of the co-hosts. It's Brad Geiger and Dave Kellett. They're two longtime web cartoonists. The show is not just educational, but it's incredibly entertaining. They're funny, ridiculous, charming, entertaining. They'll give you the straight dope on the creative process and on making comics. They talk just as much about business as they do about craft and managing your career. I've gotten so much knowledge and experience. I've learned from their experience as comic creators. I highly recommend. It's one of my highest recommendations for comic creators is to subscribe to that podcast. All right, guys. Thank you so much for this great live stream. I look forward to next week's. For those of you that are on Patreon, I look forward to seeing you in Art Book Study Group this week. All right, guys. That's it for now. Go be creative.